I am not stating that 1953's The Limping Man is a bad film, although it is going to fall into this category of let's learn from the mistakes of FOTDs. Actually, I'll make that into a playlist of films I just consider to be lesser, and I remarked upon so at the time. There'd only be about a dozen or so of them, frankly. Now, if one has viewed Film of the Day enough, one might be aware that it isn't often, though not never, I upload a completely negative write up of a film. If I watched a film, it is because I thought it would be interesting in some way, and so I usually do find it interesting or valuable as a piece of history, sometimes, if nothing else. If I dislike a film, I typically do not want to endorse it whatsoever, although sometimes I will share my thoughts on a film I don't consider of particular quality, or that I don't necessarily admire or overwhelmingly enjoy, if I consider it informative or instructive as to how things can go wrong in the context of a film production, why classic status can escape a certain picture among a director's oeuvre, or for some other miscellaneous reason. But why would Cy Enfield's The Limping Man be amongst them? It doesn't seem so bad, does it? Yes, it is a well-made film. Enfield was a celebrated director in Hollywood prior to his blacklisting. The Limping Man was a British production, and it was in the UK where Enfield would direct his most famous films eventually. The Limping Man is an admirable act of film direction, certainly, and so what could possibly let this film down? I won't outright state what it is. I'm not interested in spoiling this film outright, but it is the worst ending you could possibly imagine. Not that, yes, it's that. So what is this film even about? Well, think Cornered by Edward Dmytryk, previously discussed, and speaking of blacklisting. Lloyd Bridges, speaking of blacklisting again, searches for his former wartime lover in London, discovering that she may be associated with a spy ring being investigated by Scotland Yard. I was totally on board with this film, considering Cy Enfield something of a lost genius until its ending. We didn't need a Wizard of Oz ending here. Doesn't it suck how technically, even narratively competent a film can be, but is then marred by an embarrassing climax? Not very fun. I imagine Enfield himself saw this as an excuse to practice his craft and work on whatever he could while he had the opportunity to direct. He does a fine job here at composing a noir piece, although perhaps it isn't a superlative masterpiece. With its ending, definitely not. I'm more familiar with Enfield's 1960s work. We previously discussed the 1961 Mysterious Island on this program, which is pretty cool for what it is. And then obviously his most famous film was 1964 Zulu, the controversial picture. And there was a couple of films in the later 50s from in the UK productions, which I think, like Sea Drivers, I think, yeah, which Enfield directed, and I think that film's fairly celebrated also. But then there's the matter of I wanted to share the writers of this film because it's somewhat of interest. Reginald Long is one of the screenwriters, and he hasn't any particularly interesting credits as a screenwriter. The Limping Man is probably the highlight here. But I noticed the other screenwriter was one credited for The Limping Man was on Ian Stewart Black, and I was like, where have I heard that name before? And it's like, yeah, I figured it was. He's credited as the writer on First Doctor serials The Savages and The War Machines. The War Machines is fantastic. And Second Doctor's The Macra Terror. So I just thought, yeah, that's worth pointing out. Anyway, that's all we have to say about The Limping Man. Have a terrific day, everyone.